The Abramelin Operation completed, part 1. Now I'm going to have to make a few videos on this because the subject matter and what happened is so vast and so detailed that a brief video like this is not going to be enough to be able to get much information out. And also, a lot of this stuff people keep very secretive to themselves, especially anything regarding the Holy Guardian Angel. And I've had to take that in consideration with regards to talking about this on the internet for the world to see. And I have my own stance on what to be secretive on and what not to. And a bit like Crawley just threw it all out there with regards to his Holy Guardian Angel. He wasn't secretive at all. He published it. So there is a grounds to be able to talk about this stuff. And there are some things I cannot talk about purely because it is too personally linked to the Holy Guardian Angel. Now, the question everyone probably wants to know is, was the operation a success? And as I've mentioned from the very beginning, I have been performing the 6-month Abramelin Operation that was initially published by Samuel Little McGregor's Mathers, one of the founders of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The same Abramelin that Aleister Crowley attempted to do. The same Abramelin Operation that the Chaos Magician Ramsay Dukes was quite famous for doing. This came out 100 years ago or so, and the new translation has I've mentioned all this 1,000 times before, but the new translation is the 18 months variant of the operation. Now, the 6-month version of the operation, and there are some things in the McGregor's Mathers version that have for some reason been cut out of the new translation. And that is very important because something that I did that enabled me to have success, or at least, I'll get to that in a minute, to have success at all is not in the new translation, not in the 18-month translation. If I didn't do this one thing that for some reason is cut out of the 18-month version of the translation, which I used alongside the 6-month to kind of, as a comparison, and they do a very good job fixing up the word squares and things like that. However, there is one incredibly important thing they take out, and I'll mention that in a moment. Now, how was this a success? What happened? When I was at the end of the 6-month period, you have these. The 6-month period is almost a period of time where you're doing everything you can to show almost a form of absolute dedication to whatever the Holy Guardian Angel is. Because unlike using the Goetia or summoning demons or conjuring demons, things like that, with regards to dealing with gods or angels, and remember, these might just be archetypes from the collective unconscious that are manifestations of what we perceive to be the best elements of ourself that are associated with correspondences like planetary zodiacal correspondences and certain personality archetypes from there also. So, it could all be that, or there could be a separate entity element to it. It's up to your interpretation and your experience. Essentially, with regards to all of that, experience is the best way to have an understanding and of how literal you want to take all this. And a lot of stuff is written very literally in magic. It's kind of a tradition where they'll be more literal than they really are when they're talking about some of these things. And the Holy Guardian Angel is probably the most confused mess of something to try and understand with regards to the Western esoteric tradition, because it shows up everywhere in the Golden Dawn system, the AA, OTO, blah, blah, blah. And it all stems from the Abramelin. And the people who claim to have knowledge of conversation, they won't tell you anything about it. Everyone's so secretive. Only Crawley went on about it, but people who don't like Crawley don't believe him or think that he's just talking to a demon or blah, blah, blah. His Iwas, his Holy Guardian Angel. I take Crawley very seriously with regards to the subject matter, and he's done a great service by actually being one of the few people who's talked about this stuff. Now, this is very early in the morning for me. I felt quite bad that I haven't updated this, because I know people have been waiting and going, oh, what happened? What happened? Now, when you finish the Abramelin Operation, you're meant to rest for 8 days. I was going to make this video last week, but I had a friend come over after I finished the operation. About 3 days after I had finished the operation. Another occultist. And I was so shattered and exhausted that I just completely collapsed and had to go to bed at 1 in the afternoon or something. And my friend had to, I felt terrible, because it's a very, very, very long trip to get to mine. But he's an occultist. He understood this is a side effect of the Abramelin Operation, and I made it up by going back to his a couple days ago. So I decided not to make any videos, do any reading, and just rest as much as possible in order to get to this point. Now, if you watch my last video, I was going through a rough time. I had been sick, my health wasn't doing well, and it was impacting the operation. I had to cease everything I was doing, except the operation itself. So I was just doing the operation, trying to recover enough, and then this looming date of the last part of the operation was coming up very quickly. And if you watch my videos, like a concise explanation or whatever of the Abramelin Operation that I made, you'll realize that when a 6-month period is over, which is set up in those 3 phases, you have 3 days where you're invoking the good spirits. Never clear at all in the Abramelin what that actually is, and I'll get into that. And then 3 days conjuring the evil. Now, what most people do who do the Abramelin in the modern day is they'll do the 6-month or the 18-month period. They will then spend the 3 days evoking their Holy Guardian Angel, essentially, and if nothing happens, you stop after the third day and you do not summon the demons. Because it is, if you don't have knowledge and conversation by that point, essentially it is nothing but a danger to your physical and mental well-being to continue. And what happened with me was very interesting. I expected this to be an absolute failure because of the last kind of month or so of the operation. I was so exhausted and unwell, and that's why I didn't make any videos. I just sort of forced myself to make one Abramelin video, just sort of go, you know, I'm still doing it. But yeah, I wasn't in good shape. And these 6 days or 3 days, depending, were looming very quickly ahead of me, and I was dreading them. I was absolutely dreading them because of my health. I don't want to risk making, and I've had massive improvements in my health since beginning the Amramelin Operation. That's been something that's been quite amazing, is where my life is now compared to where my life was over 6 months ago when I began this operation. My life has improved. Despite all the hard and difficult times and getting sick and all that shit, my life has improved dramatically through this entire process, which is interesting. And medically, my life has improved significantly, specifically with regards to physical health problems I have. And I won't go into those, but yeah, my health has improved quite dramatically, and the position where my life is going next year, because this year kind of got a bit messed up for me at the beginning after I had gotten COVID-19 and I had to take a leave of absence because I got so sick. I was out for about 2 months because I also got another virus just before I had gotten COVID. And because I do not have the best health, when I got COVID, it almost did me in. So after that, I had to take a leave of absence. And then I went, what the hell am I going to do? This entire year that I had set up has now been ruined, and it's just the end of March. Anyway, Passover was coming up, and that's when I came up with this sudden epiphany. Oh, just do this 6-month Abramelin operation. I don't know where that came from. I haven't mentioned all of this stuff because I try and keep my personal life as much as possible out of these videos. But this is important. Now, yeah, I know I'm sort of going on and on. This is really early in the morning for me. I am not quite awake yet, but I just wanted to make the video because people have been waiting, and I'm going to have to make multiple videos to even explain this comprehensively enough. But what I will say is I consider the Abramelin operation I've done a success. Now, but not in the way that I expected, and not in the way that the Abramelin states it will be. It was a very different experience from, if you watch a movie, the brilliant movie A Dark Song, and at the end she sees the glorious angel in armor and full of light. My experience was very, very different. Did I get knowledge and conversation? Yes. And I'm going to tell you how and why. And I kept mentioning the real purpose of the 6-month aspect of this operation, or the 18-month, to me is, unlike demonic entities, if you're trying to, because with the Abramelin, you're not just trying to get the attention of an angel to charge some talisman or something. You're trying to get into communication and build and strengthen a link between you and the holy guardian angel, which is essentially a god, if you look at it in paganistic terms, or a intermediary between gods and men, which in Kabbalistic kind of context, the holy guardian angel does act as almost the intermediary between you and Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. So what the 6-month really is a show of dedication, because I'm going to use a bit of a terminology that I'm going to steal from a guy called Thomas Sheridan. He's on YouTube. He's written books. He used to be very famous talking about psychopaths. And then he started talking about the occult. And he made some really good documentaries on a channel that was called Open Source Occult TV, which is, I think, now called Beyond Room 313. The only reason I probably haven't recommended him is he's gotten very political the past kind of couple years, and that's fine. But he talks about the political things more now, or at least the last time I checked him out. And I'm a huge fan of his, but I'm sick of hearing about COVID, and I'm sick of the politics associated with it. So I love it when he goes back and talks about occult stuff. His older videos I highly recommend. His stuff on psychopaths, his stuff on the government. Anyway, he uses a great term regarding getting in contact with an angel or a god. And it's like being an ant, I think he said, trying to get the attention of an eagle. And if you just do some 30-minute ritual and expect this eagle to pay attention to you, this ant, not only will the eagle have absolutely no interest in you, because they usually don't. You have to actually prove yourself to these things. It might just send a demon to go and mess with you out of pure spite for the audacity you had to just do some 30-minute ritual, expecting to get a result like what the end of the Abramelin Operation entails. Now, regarding what happened to me, I was in a very sort of, not negative, but I prepared myself for failure. Because my orations and things like that, and prayers, became shorter towards the end of the operation because I was unwell and I was exhausted, and I couldn't risk deteriorating after I had significant improvements in my health and all these other things too much. And I didn't want to risk becoming, say, mentally unwell through nervous exhaustion. So by the end of, now I'm going to go into much more detail and much more concise detail in another video. All right, so I had to delay the end of my operation by 2 days because my birthday happened to be the first day of evoking the first of the 3 days evoking the good spirit or the holy guardian angel. And I knew that was going to be a problem. I was going to be distracted. People were going to want to talk to me, see me, blah, blah, blah. So I had to delay it. I delayed it by only 2 days. So essentially I did the Abramelin 6 moons, lunar phases, plus 2 days. I continued it, and that was a very good decision because my birthday was on a Sunday, and then on Monday, day 1. And I was expecting nothing because I didn't feel worthy enough. I didn't feel that I felt that my effort was good, but I felt that because I had gotten unwell but I had the wrong perspective. I had and I'd written an oath before starting this that if my health became too bad or I got too sick, I could pull out of the operation without that coming back to haunt me. And the Amramelin states you can do so. You know, you can even do the operation from bed if you're very sick. And I would recommend persevering. Unless your health is going to deteriorate to such an extent where... Because your health is going to deteriorate at the end. Because it's hard. It is a grueling operation. And doing it every day for 6 months, it wears you down. And I talked about burnout earlier. So I was... Alright, so I'll go to the first day. I delayed it for those 2 days, and then the first day I started... Now, I deviated slightly from the text. Now, in the new translation of the Abramelin, the 18-month translation, they don't mention the child oracle or the plate of silver at all. Now, I might be wrong because I'm not a big fan of the new translation. I like the McGregor's Mathers one. I don't know why. The most crucial part of the beginning of communications for me was scrying. Scrying, i.e., in the Mathers translation of the Abremelin, it states on the first day, essentially, you evoke the Holy Guardian Angel. You spend essentially all day doing it, and you have a plate of silver, polished silver, and you get a child oracle, which is unnecessary. McGregor's Mathers puts in a translation, you can just do this yourself. However, the reasoning behind the child oracle is for the child oracle to scry to confirm that the entity you're in communication with really is the Holy Guardian Angel and not some demon messing with you. Because I'm not entirely sure if Abraham von Worms, the guy who wrote the book and did the operation in the 1400s, if he also scried. And the point of scrying for the Abramelin context is in order to get, in his case, it would probably be Hebrew or German letters and the very beginnings of communication over those 3 days. So then at the end of those 3 days, the aim is physical manifestation of the Holy Guardian Angel. Now, what I got on that Monday morning put me in a state of shock afterwards, because I went in with a little bit crestfallen. I went, this has been I didn't see it as a waste of time or anything like that. I just sort of went in going, it's such a shame that I got sick, and that probably has impacted the operation. It's probably not going to work. And there is pressure. I've done this as a kind of passion project in the hopes that people who are interested in the Abremelin, but not just the Abremelin, who are interested in the Western esoteric tradition, magic. I was hoping to be able to show people what it's like for someone to do an extended magical operation. And it's hard to go on something like this and say you failed. And I have tried to be as, I've kept my identity and certain things extremely secret. And for reasons I'm not going to bother explaining, but I've tried to be as honest as possible regarding this whole process and the mistakes I've made, all of that stuff. I've tried to keep my integrity. So I assumed that I was going to have to make a video going, I failed. That's not the case. I got a result on the first day that was beyond anything I expected. Now, I decided to opt out of using silver for one reason. The only silver I could get was too small, and there was one online that a guy who's doing the Abramelin Operation overseas linked to me that, is not too expensive, giving it's pure polished silver, but it is too small for scrying purposes, in my opinion. And so I decided to use the sort of Golden Dawn traditional black obsidian scrying mirror utilized in Enochian magic. Now, I don't have polished black obsidian mirror, but I have a picture frame, and I never show, you see how reflective that is? I never show any of my magical equipment or my altar or any of that stuff, not because of any reasons of embarrassment or anything like that. I don't care. I've been talking about magic and the possibility of Christian being possessed by demons. I've already done things that on YouTube that are incredibly bizarre in the context of me in normal society, who have no idea I'm into this stuff. Anyway, I'm showing you this because without this, the operation would have been a semi-success. I would have gotten knowledge, but not conversation. However, I can't say my Abramelin operation was a success in the terms of what the book makes it out will happen. However, I did get full manifestation. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened. I know I've gone on, and I'm going to go through some of my magical diaries of the first 3 days. I might actually make a separate video to do this, because I realize now it's already been half an hour. But I guess what I'll say for now is I wanted to make sure I uploaded something. But yeah, the importance of the scrying. And, you know, I just used the black scrying mirror. I used a candle that I put behind it on my altar. Kept everything dark. I used my magic wand. I know you're supposed to use an arm. I'm not going to show you my magic wand. For superstitious reasons. I decided to use a wand, and the only magic wand I've ever owned, the only one that I'm familiar with and have utilized in many operations, and it's a wand that I have bled all over and all sorts of stuff, linking it to me. And rather than buying or making a wand out of a piece of almond from an almond tree. Now, the reasoning behind using, because remember the Abramelin Operation, it has Hermetic elements, but it is written by a very Orthodox Jewish man to his second son, Lamech, as a means to teach him magic, even though his second son has no understanding of the Kabbalah. Because in Jewish tradition, you taught your first son the secrets of the Kabbalah. Your second son, sadly, does not get that. And it is an unbelievably Jewish and Kabbalistic operation. Now, why am I going on about? Oh yeah, the almond wand. I couldn't find any almond trees near me, so I was going to have to purchase one. Someone who I was in communication with sent me links to where I could buy quite cheap almond wands. However, in the end, I kind of went, I don't want to give money to the company that was producing them, because they were Wiccans. Yeah, I know I've been harsh on Wiccans. I'm sorry. It's not personal. I just don't want to fund you in any way, shape or form. And so I decided to go what I was familiar with. And I'm very glad I did this. And I wore my white robe. And for a crown, I used a piece of I used a woman's scarf that I borrowed that was sort of like cloth of silver. And that worked. And what I kind of did, I can't go into too much detail, but on the first day, on Monday, I was evoking, during my prayers, I consecrated the area again in the way recommended, just to play it safe. I got completely set up, did a long oration and prayers, then and in my own evocation, and then I pulled them picture frame, which is made from black cardboard and black paint to make it extremely reflective. And I placed it on my altar with the candle behind it, got out my magic wand, pointed it at it, and essentially it evoked knowledge and conversation from a holy guardian angel, and stared into that black mirror. I know people might hassle me for not using the polished silver. However, I do not believe it would have been reflective enough, at least, or big enough to be able to scry in a manner that is going to be essentially what I needed. And with regards to the reason for the use of a almond wand rather than other wood, it goes back into something in the Torah regarding the 12 tribes of Israel. They all put a stick. I think I read it during the Abramelin Operation, and I'm pretty rusty. I read the Torah again at the very, 6 months ago. I forget if it's in Exodus or Leviticus. Anyway, the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel put a stick of different wood in a pile somewhere, and if overnight, and whoever's piece of wood sprouted anything, they would be kind of, the High King of Israel. I'm probably, I'm sorry, relaying the story terribly. However, it was Aaron's stick made of almond wood that sprouted, which caused Aaron, who I believe is the son of Moses, was then chosen to be the High King of Israel. Something along those lines. So if you're a Orthodox Jewish man, using almond wood for a wand makes absolute sense to me. However, if I was going to do that, I wanted to carve it myself. I didn't know where to find any almond without having to go and steal it from somebody's backyard or front yard or a botanical gardens. So I just went with my own wand. As I said, I didn't want to fund the Wiccans, but I'm glad I did, because that familiarity was extremely important. Very quickly, something showed up on my scrying screen. Now, how I scry is I stare. I do it with my glasses on, but anyway, I stare without blinking into the scrying screen, and I don't blink at all. For however long it's going to take. And I taught myself certain concentration techniques, which I used to do every day back in 2019 before COVID, where it's a technique that Aleister Crowley used to do, where you stare at yourself in a mirror and you look at your forehead or your third eye, and you do so until your face starts to become have a kind of uncanny valley effect, where it starts looking demonic and weird, and your sight is constantly brought down towards your eyes. You force yourself not to look at your eyes, but your forehead. And eventually something weird starts to happen. You'll start becoming black, pitch black, like a shadow. And you stare long enough, you will actually disappear from the mirror. Now, Crowley apparently used this technique to become invisible. Now, I don't think Crowley was being literal with that, though he did say, I believe, that he walked naked through the city of New Mexico after doing this. People who may have done that, and people may have pretended to be invisible, seeing this weird Englishman walking around the block naked in Mexico, or they probably just didn't care. Anyway, apparently you can utilize this technique to become invisible, literally, but I don't know. I utilized it as a form of concentration technique to train myself. And what I would do is every day I'd do it again and again and again. And the first time it took me 20 minutes. About 2 weeks later, I could do it in less than 3 minutes, where I would turn black and then I'd become invisible. And so using that kind of technique and concentration practice, I'd recommend doing that, especially if you're going to do scrying. It becomes very useful. So I was scrying, intense concentration. And I know I'm going on a bit, but so much happened. And what I saw, alright, I might read from essentially my magical diary from this period. I can't read out everything, but to sort of explain what happened. And then I will make another video going into much more detail and being much more concise. But I think I'll do it that way, because it's going to be too hard. Yeah. One of the biggest failings I've done throughout this entire Abramelin operation is I started with a magical diary that I did daily. And I really regret stopping it, because I got so exhausted during the operation that I just did what had to be done. And then writing all this stuff down into a magical diary every day, I was too busy, and I was not being idle. I was doing my work essentially every single day with no break. And I burnt myself out, which I mentioned in my last video, but I managed to pull myself back together just before the end. And at least these videos serve as a diary of sorts. But I was in such a state of shock at what happened, especially after the first day of evoking the Holy Guardian Angel. I was sending walls of text to an occultist friend of mine who was very interested in how the operation was coming forth, and I needed some help with certain things that I couldn't tell him directly, and I'll explain that in a minute. So I saved all those messages of me ranting about, in text, what was happening. So I'll read you a summary of the first day of evoking the Holy Guardian Angel, where something truly amazing happened. Okay, I'm going to sort of read through it. The date was Tuesday, the 11th of October, 2022. This is the morning after the first... Is it recording? Yep. This is the morning after the first day. And I sent this to a friend, and I'm going to cut out any details involving him. Anyway, And this is my second day of invoking the Holy Guardian Angel and me recapping the first day to my occultist friend. I am just about to ritually purify myself and continue the second day. I am a bit late, but I don't care. I need my head together for this. I need to be awake and ready. You will not believe what happened to me yesterday. By day 3, if the operation is a success, you gain knowledge and conversation with your HGA, Holy Guardian Angel. Day 3 is tomorrow. If successful, you then, if instructed, dance with the demons for 3 days. In the old McGregor's Mathers translation of the Abramelin, you use a piece of silver. I've already mentioned this. Hold on one sec, I'll skip forward a bit. Okay, I was kind of describing to my friend, reminding him what the operation entails at the end there. Alright, you are meant to use the scrying to get words from your Holy Guardian Angel and the beginnings of communication. Day 3 is meant to be manifestation. Well, I got something. The only thing I saw was a naked black woman with wings. She is either black or Egyptian wearing a head ornament. It's hard to tell. I got some words in Hebrew I did not understand. I asked for English, and I got, I'm not going to say how many letters I got, but I got English letters, which I wrote down. When I returned to evoking my angel, I got the surprise of my life. Whatever she is, alright, one thing I need to go into very quickly is I in no way expected the Holy Guardian Angel, and I'll go into why I believe what I experienced was knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel and not just some demonic entity messing with me. I took a lot of precautions. I even interrogated the Holy Guardian Angel in a way that you interrogate demons in the Goetia, threatening them and forcing them to tell you the truth. This was not a demonic entity. And what happened during these 3 days, I have never had anything like this happen to me before in my entire life. After the first day, I actually walked out of the oratory in a state of absolute shock because I couldn't believe what happened. Anyway, I assumed the reason I assumed it would be male is because the Holy Guardian Angel is associated with the Sephiroth Tippereth, the sun, literally the sun, and also the son of the supernal triad above Tippereth, across the abyss, the son of Kita, Bina, and Chokmah, down to Tippereth. Tippereth is very sort of male-associated Sephiroth, and the Abramelin Operation, even though it doesn't state this in the book, but Kabbalistically, you are trying to unite Tippereth with Shekinah, with Malkuth, with the lower Sephiroth, in a sort of holy marriage and holy union. And so I know a bunch of people have gone on about, the Holy Guardian Angel, mine was female. I went fucking, bullshit. In almost all cases, it's male. L. Ron Hubbard, interestingly enough, claimed to have a female Holy Guardian Angel. And Hubbard was in the OTO. He was very ingrained and associated with magic. I have a lot of respect for L. Ron Hubbard, to be honest. I mean, he was a genius. Anyway, I'm not a Scientologist, and I got no interest in Scientology there. But Hubbard, in the early days, Yeah, he was an absolute genius. Scumbag, yes, but doesn't take away from his accomplishments. Anyway, the only time I heard holy guardian angels showing up as female is when they're associated with the Sephiroth Binah, which is part of the supernal triad at the very top, below Ketha, or Kita. And usually, because the holy guardian angel technically has no gender, possibly, and apparently, according to AA documents that I've gone through, it might show up as a woman when associated with the sort of very female Sephiroth Binah, when it's pissed off at you to punish you. So it's all very secretive, all very confusing. Oh, and I want to make something clear. Everything I've talked about regarding the secret societies of the AA, the Order Templi Orientis or the OTO, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, I have not mentioned anything that has not already been made public through publishing in their own books. I've said nothing on anything that has not been openly published by them. So I'm not giving away any secrets. So if people involved in those organizations, don't give me say, oh, you shouldn't have said that, or if Daniel Gunther published this in The Angel and the Abyss, an initiation into the Aeon of the Child, and in other books involved with the AA, or if Crawley mentioned something like this, and it's been published by Weiser or whoever, that's in the general public now. That is no longer secret. So I'm not giving away anything that has not already been published. I want to make that very clear. If you want to know anything beyond that, even though a lot of this stuff is very, very difficult to find, I would highly recommend joining one of these organizations. I wouldn't recommend the Golden Dawn, because they don't really exist in the form like they used to, and there's a lot of scam Golden Dawns around. Anyway, if you want to go into this stuff deeper, anyway, I'll continue reading. Beautiful black naked woman with wings. She's either black or Egyptian, wearing a head ornament. It's been hard to tell. I got some words in Hebrew I did not understand. I asked for English. I can't tell you what letters or how many I got. When I returned to evoking my angel later, I got the surprise of my life. Whatever she is, she came back. And not only did she come back, she flew out of the scrying screen at me. The candle flame went crazy as this happened. Then, as she touched me, it was one of the most intense experiences I have ever had. It felt like I had just injected 0.5 gram of meth. Then she was gone. Alright, this happened to me within half an hour of scrying on the first day to evoke my holy guardian angel. Now, the reason I thought she was a black woman was, at first it wasn't too clear, and I thought she had an afro. I was wrong. She looks, and this is where things get complicated. It's very difficult to tell you, because some things I have to keep secret. But what I can say is, yeah, she looks like an Egyptian woman wearing a headdress. Once I got a clearer picture. And something happened to me that has never happened to me in my entire life. And that was the entity in And I'll tell you why I'm convinced it's a holy guardian angel. And I have spent a lot of time. I did a lot of stuff to make sure this was legitimate. Also, I spent a lot of time discussing things with people involved that I know in real life, not people on the internet, in the occult, and to try and get the best. And I needed help with certain things regarding gematria, which is the conversion of Hebrew letters into their numerical correspondences, and then seeing what associations their numerical value of those letters come to. And I'm not very good at gematria. I didn't get someone else to do the gematria for me. I did it myself, but I needed... Crawley 777 is an amazing book, but it is can be a bit confusing with regards to some letters, converting them from English to Hebrew, and then some letters I was a little bit unsure of. So without giving anything away, I was able to convert the English letters that I was given into Hebrew, and then I then added them up, found their numerical value, and got another shock of my life. And with the gematria, I went beyond that. I took the individual letters and saw which tarot cards they corresponded with regards to their numerical value to the major arcana in Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, which was very helpful. Things like that, and I cannot tell you what letters I got, what the meaning of it was, the numerical value, what their associations were together, corresponding to Kabbalistically, and also with regards to Crowley's Thoth Tarot, or individually. I can't tell you any of that. That is secret. That is something between me and the Holy Guardian Angel. Anyway, when I initially got the letters, unknowingly with the Hebrew, it came up so quickly that I was unable to write it down. But then I quickly wrote down all the English letters that showed up once I asked the Holy Guardian Angel to do it in English. And then after that, I continued scrying, and that's when she literally came out of the scrying screen and embraced me. It was, and the only thing I can compare it to is the rush. When she embraced me, it felt like somebody shot me up with methamphetamine. That's the only thing I can compare it to. Within 3 seconds. Sorry for my language and things like that. I tried to keep things as, in these videos, I really try to keep things as academic as possible. But this is so personal, it is very difficult for me to sort of take a step back, go through it. This is so personal. So, anyway, as somebody who has, as I've mentioned in other videos, when I was much, much younger, experimented with hard drugs. I've shot up methamphetamine when I was in my early 20s. And there's always something I used to say about what especially when, and in the book I'm writing, I go into this, but I will mention it for this. A long time ago, when I had to shoot 0.5 gram of very pure methamphetamine, when it kicked, bitter taste in the back of your throat and this rise of euphoria, it felt like I was becoming an angel. I couldn't even compare, and that's how I described it. And that's how I describe it in my book, but in much more detail, is that essentially smoking meth hits you in the chest. It's very different. And remember, I'm from Australia. Methamphetamine is, at least in my generation, was huge. Everyone I grew up with, at some point, other than a couple, at least glass blasted crystal on multiple occasions. It just was part of the culture. But you can't compare injecting meth to glass blasting it. Injecting it, you get, in glass blasting, smoking meth from a crack pipe, you might spend 30 minutes to get, 2 points or 1/4 gram. And you'll be smoking for 30 minutes straight. Whereas if you inject that, you get it all within 3 seconds. And within that 3 seconds, the only way I can describe it is it felt like I had become and transcended in a form of apotheosis into an angel. Now remember, this stuff I'm talking about a long time ago. Don't do that stuff anymore. It's been years and years and years. I don't want to tell you how old I am, because for personal and private reasons. But this was at least more than 7 years ago, a long time ago. I did this stuff when I was a teenager. And I know that might seem abnormal, but I grew up quite rough, and I've had a very interesting life. In a way, it was almost a form of initiation with regards to methamphetamine and heroin in my teenage years. Anyway, it felt like when the Holy Guardian Angel embraced me, it felt almost identical to my experience when I had injected 0.5 gram of methamphetamine, which is a ridiculously high dose. I was sort of put in a position when I was actually forced to do that. I didn't want to do that, but I had to do it, and I did it anyway. And yeah, it felt, the rush was absolutely overwhelming when this thing embraced me. And I have never had anything like that happen to me before. Something coming out of this and not just touching me, but embracing me. And 3 seconds, huge rise, like a meth injection, and then gone. I had to get out of the oratory, and I stood out in this area in a state of absolute shock. This was in no form psychosis. I do not have issues with discerning reality. I know I have this strange belief in demons, but that's mostly due to experience I had overseas, which changed my outlook from demons being just a pure Jungian archetypal entity that doesn't really exist. It's just within the collective unconscious. It's an archetype that manifests itself to becoming something more literal. The only reason I have that perspective is because of what happened to me in the Middle East and Central Asia, which is a whole story I'm not going to go into now. And I'll finish reading what I said about the first day. So, yeah, the flame went crazy, and then she touched me. It's one of the most intense experiences I've ever had. I felt like I had just injected 0.5 grams of meth. Then she was gone. I assumed the HGA would be male. I should not be getting demons, for my oratory has been consecrated by prayer for 6 months straight. But I did not expect this. I don't jump to conclusions. I have no idea if this is my HGA or some other entity. I literally am having to psych myself up to go back in there today. This is the second day. Talking about the first. I am consecrating the fuck out of the area just in case, and doing a full body ritual purification in the shower, Islam style. And essentially did full body voodoo. I never expected anything to happen. I felt that I probably got knowledge, but that at most. This is something else. I am in over my head, man. I either got knowledge and manifestation of my HGA with no clear communication, or it's something else. I assume it would be male because of its connection to Tippereth. I may be wrong. The gender does not matter. I am just shocked at the intensity and am wanting to make sure I don't jump to conclusions. Anyway, that's my update. Okay, I've already gone on for a long time, but I'm going to go through I'm going to at least go through the 3 days, and I will make a much more concise video. This one's kind of all over the place. This is a very interesting and special event. I'll go into another one of my magical diaries, essentially. I'm not giving away any, who my friend is or what they say, but alright, so during the first day, I got that manifestation, and then every time I went to the scrying screen, within less than a minute, the same beautiful Egyptian woman kept showing up. Every single time. The problem was on the first day is I got no clear means of communication other than those letters. And I got more letters. And luckily for me, my friend is an exceptional Kabbalist. And he gave me some very, very, very good advice. And anyway, I'll continue reading. Anyway, I will definitely do some gematria with the letters I got. Anyway, I'm sorry, this is written during the second day. I'm so exhausted from hours of scrying. I only seen the same winged black or Egyptian woman. I still wasn't quite sure at this point. but I can't make sense of what it wants, although I feel I know and have followed its instructions that I could understand. And by the way, I did get instructions, and I cannot tell you what they were or what I did. So there's a lot of stuff in this that it's going to be I have to keep secret. And it's kept secret even from my close friend and magical associate. But yeah, I think it would take a while for actual conversation. But I'm glad it's the same female angel or whatever it is that keeps showing up. I was worried yesterday that it may be a demon, but I have no doubt that it is not a demon. I don't know enough or anyone to ask if my operation has made contact with my holy guardian angel, so I have to just go by instinct. I will stop the operation tomorrow, being the third day, if I do not get any clear instructions in some form. I think I have made contact, and it manifested briefly, and it's the only entity that is there after hours of scrying, so who knows. Right, I'll go to the next. I believe this is my magical diary to my friend. I believe this is the morning of the third day of evoking the Holy Guardian Angel. Wish me luck on my final day, where the angel is meant to show up in all its glory and tell me what to do. Strengthen the link, quote. You are on point with that. If this is some angelic Egyptian goddess, if this is same angelic Egyptian goddess shows up in the scrying screen again today and nothing else happened, I will end my 6-month Abramelin operation, but I will stay in communication with this angel or whatever it is just in case. It's worth doing so. Who knows? It could be an intermediary to some Egyptian god for all I know. I'm not saying it out of arrogance. I just don't think it's a demon fucking with me. I will not summon the demons tomorrow unless I get specific written or audible or some form of clear instruction to do so. If it's just a confusing and confounding in aspects of my psyche, it's making me aware of it. Oh, sorry, right there very well. Anyway, something I found interesting is it was bringing up things in my psyche that were in the background and forcing me to be confronted by it, which is something that within the systems of the AA and the OTO, in particular the AA, that happens regarding the Holy Guardian Angel when you know higher grades. It does confront you with certain elements of your psyche that you may be repressing. It's very interesting. Making me aware of in a helpful way. I will end the operation formally and stay in contact and, quote, strengthen the link. At least I am one of the few people to do the 6-month Abramelin operation in full without having to stop it early and get results at all, let alone how much I've gotten out of it the past 6 months. Blah, blah, blah. I'll go to the next one. Alright, this is... Before I read this, what happened was the first day I got the manifestation from the scrying screen and a bunch of letters. The second day I got more letters and the entity, which I am convinced is my holy guardian angel, kept showing up and trying to communicate with me. However, I ended up having to devise a very complex simple means of communication using the scrying screen. Now, on the third day, the same Egyptian goddess-looking angelic being, she kept showing up. Nothing else showed up in the scrying screen. It's only her. And you're meant to stop using the scrying screen once you have gotten instructions. And on the third day, it's meant to manifest. Well, it already kind of did manifest on the first day. However, I believe that the operation, 6 months, was successful enough in creating the connection and bringing the Holy Guardian Angel down from, if I use Kabbalistic terminology, from, Tippereth, uniting with Malkuth or Shekinah. The sort of holy union was successful. I definitely experienced vision of the angel within the context of what that means in the AA, and I got a lot more than that. I believe that I never expected anything to show up like in a dark song, where in my room a giant angel will manifest physically. No. I still got a lot more than I expected. It coming out and embracing me. I developed a mean of communications. I have to be very careful in what I say because a lot of this stuff is very secret. But using certain gestures, I was able to communicate with the Holy Guardian Angel. Asking it questions, and I'm not going to tell you what the gesture was, and I'm just going to say, and this was not the gesture that we used to communicate yes and no kind of questions. I'm just going to use nodding the head as an example for yes, and not nodding the head for no. That wasn't the gesture that we used, because the gesture we used turns out to be something linked to things I can't talk about. And essentially, I would repeatedly ask the same questions over and over again. And this was a very useful means of communication. Now, during the 6-month version of this operation, especially because of getting ill towards the end, and my orations and that being less intense, but building up that charge in order to bring down the angel, I think it was enough to get knowledge and enough to get conversation and some form of manifestation. But I think because I got so unwell, the charge wasn't strong enough to bring the kind of results mentioned in the Abramelin. However, you have to remember a lot of this stuff, especially in these old magical tradition books, and even though the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage is very different from any other grimoire I've ever come across, Abraham von Worms, the author, he spent 40 years within the Western esoteric tradition and went to Egypt even and studied Arabic stuff. And he's a very interesting guy. He was a Kabbalist, and the Abremelin is an operation that he got from an Egyptian magi, essentially, and that is what the operation is named after. Is named after the Egyptian magician who lived in some cave called Abramelin. But you can't take it all too literally. But magic does have a tendency to sometimes operate like a light switch. It will either nothing will happen or it works. And I decided, after I had made sure it was my holy guardian angel, because I interrogated it. I know I actually felt kind of bad doing this, but I had to. I had to make sure it wasn't a demon. I would have assumed it was a demon straight away, essentially, if I wasn't doing this in an oratory and on an altar that I had spent 6 months consecrating in prayer multiple times a day. That in and of itself gives a massive amount of protection from demonic entities. And a lot of people won't do this, but I recommend doing this. If you do not assume instantly, if you get something, that it is the Holy Guardian Angel. Take a step back and analyze the whole thing. If you get any letters, do gematria and see what associations you're getting. Demons are liars, though, and they will tell you whatever you want to hear. But look at things like the Goetia and Enochian magic, and with read the Vision and the Voice by Aleister Crowley, specifically the 10th Aether. I made a video, I think, last year where I read the 10th Aether, where Aleister Crowley and Victor Newberg essentially conjured Choronzon, the demon Choronzon 333. With demons, if you use magical means to force them to tell the truth, they inevitably tell the truth. And I absolutely interrogated my holy guardian angel, threatening it, using magical names of God in Kabbalistic terms, and doing everything to make sure that this was not some demonic entity trying to mess with me. It passed all the tests I could possibly throw at it. And I'm going to really reiterate the importance of the scrying mirror, the scrying screen. Without this, yeah, I would have gotten knowledge, and I would have had something strange happen. But without this, and I wouldn't have had this if I didn't own the McGregor's Mathers translation. I wouldn't have, even though I meant to use a piece of silver, as I said, I wanted to use what was going to be the best for the purposes of scrying. And the Golden Dawn style Black Obsidian mirror is the gold standard. Making my own mirror, see how reflective it is. Makes it very easy to scry compared to silver. I recommend using your own wand that you are comfortable with, unless you are a very religious person, because that might build an extra charge knowing that you have essentially the wand of Aaron. Anyway, I pointed my wand at it. I'll read. I'll tell you what happened. On the third day, after I asked over and over and over again, because we were communicating, but we didn't have a clear means of communication in the sense of, a voice telling me what to do. A clear means or in writing on the scrying screen in a way where it's, quite clear on what to do. I ended up asking on the third day over and over and over again if I should either, and I'll use the nodding as an example. I would ask the Holy Guardian Angel to nod if I should strengthen the link or stand still if I should continue summoning the demons and doing the final part of the Abramelin Operation. I asked probably 100 times. Every single time she nodded to the AA kind of mentality of strengthening the link between yourself and the angel after you've gotten communication to be able to more easily communicate in the future. So every time it nodded to strengthen the link and to close, which meant for me to not continue the operation after the third day and formally end it. And that's what I did. And since then, I've been in a state of total exhaustion. I'm much better now. I've been going on for almost an hour and a half. My energy, everything, I'm much better, all back to normal now. I made the mistake of trying to hang out with a Kabbalist and occultist friend a few days after the operation, and I literally collapsed in exhaustion, and I hung out with him on 9 days after the operation ended. And the operation ended essentially I'm not going to give you the exact date. And I was going to make a little video to say I finished the operation and a video is coming, but I decided to do nothing those 8 days. Anyway, now that I've recovered, I know how messy this video is and how long. I'm going to make follow-up videos to this where I'm much more concise and I'll explain little things. But I just wanted to give the full picture. I'll continue reading from some of the magical journal kind of stuff. I asked the HGA repeatedly if I should continue the operation conjuring the demons or if I should end the operation and strengthen the link over time. She nodded for strengthen the link and stayed still for no as the parameters. She nodded every time I asked. She is the only thing that has shown up when I scryed, and she corresponds to some amazing things. I still don't know the name. I'm pretty sure I do now. But after evoking Yod-He, Vahe, etc., to make sure it was not a demon, and commanding it to tell the truth, the entity essentially stated it was my holy guardian angel. I felt bad interrogating her, but it had to be done. On her advice, I formally closed the Abramelin Operation, and as far as I'm concerned, the 6 months operation was more of a success than I ever expected. If communication was stronger, I would have continued the last 3 days summoning the demons. But that would be folly without proper conversation. Anyway, it told me to stop, essentially, over and over, and to strengthen the link. It has been quite intense. Alright, here's the day after I formally ceased the Abramelin Operation. I was exhausted yesterday, still am. Did a deep dive into gematria of the letters. I got more letters yesterday too, and it has blown my mind. Thank you for helping me out with recommending a certain book that I forgot about, made it easy to work it out with Crawley's 777. I have avoided gematria my entire magical career for some stupid preconception that I needed to be good at math. Now I'm having to stop myself from spending hours going through the correspondences to my HGA letters. I am fucking exhausted though. Have to rest today so I don't get nervous exhaustion. This 6 months operation has been so intense, especially the past 3 days. I was not naive enough to assume it would work exactly as the Abramelin says, but I expected nothing, man, and boy did I get something. So many people claim to have knowledge and conversation with the HGA and are deluding themselves. I'm not egotistical enough for that, to be honest. This has been a shock to me that I made contact. Communication in a simple way and full manifestation for a brief period. I believe I had gained knowledge and conversation with my holy guardian angel. Through geometry of the letters she showed me, I may have even discovered her name. And then there's stuff I can't reveal. I'm not going to continue because essentially I just start going on and on about gematria. And this friend I was corresponding with over the over a messaging app is the friend that came over and saw me a few days after I finished the Abramelin Operation in that state, and then where I fell into a state of total exhaustion, had to go to sleep. I was so burnt out. I then saw him again on day 9 after finishing, 8 days after ending the operation, and I was fine. And he was incredibly helpful. It's incredibly helpful to have somebody else who knows a bit to be able to corroborate some of the stuff. And as I said at the beginning of this, most people are extremely secretive about the Holy Guardian Angel, and for good reason. But Crawley just threw it all out there with Iros. And I'm revealing a lot. Though the story is far more complex and there's a lot more going on to it. Another thing that surprised my friend was that I got these results whilst being completely sober. As I mentioned, I'm very anti using drugs in magical operations, specifically things like marijuana and psychedelics. I use nothing to help, open the veil or whatever. In the past, yeah, I've used things like opium and morphine, and I've had success, but I do not recommend that at all. when I did this, I went through the entire Abramelin operation, essentially living like an Orthodox Jew. I followed Shabbat. I absolutely did everything I could to be as close to the operation as possible. I even completely abstained from any form of sex for 6 months. That was difficult. Total abstinence. That's another thing during this operation. If you're going to do the Abremelin, get ready. You're not going to. You're only allowed to have sex with a woman you're married to, and even then, that is frowned upon. I think being chaste during that period is one of the reasons why I got success where other people have not with regards to the 6 months operation. Ramsay Dukes, a man I respect immensely, a British chaos magician who did the Abramelin in the 70s, he got what he called knowledge of the Holy Guardian Angel, but he didn't get conversation. And it's similar to what I got, except I got manifestation. I got sort of conversation through signs and letters and through simple means of communication via body language and yes or no questions. Ramsay Dukes didn't get that. However, he got knowledge. I believe that he would have had more success if he stayed abstinent, because I've read his book, and the mistake I believe he made was he had a kind of hippie perspective where, you know, but this is a extremely Jewish ritual. If you're going to do it, you have to understand you're under the parameters of the Torah and the Talmud and the Abramelin. And so it was very interesting living life in this kind of way. And anyway, with what happened to Ramsay Dukes, yeah, I'm not criticizing him. I'm going that being abstinent built a charge. In a way, doing the 6-month Abramelin operation is almost a form of sex magic, because you are building up this charge, especially as a man, of not doing anything. And by the end of it, you have this huge amount of sexual energy that you have not released in any way, shape, or form. And that builds a charge. And I think that's one of the reasons why abstinence is highly recommended in the Abramelin. Not so much to enforce, you know, not sleeping with women outside of marriage, not so much the Torah and following, you know, not to be an adulterer. And yeah, after the operation's finished, I've kind of let loose a little bit. One of the reasons I've had to delay this video is I was hungover for 2 days straight, because I you know, someone who actually doesn't drink, and you know, I celebrated a little bit But yeah, I've gone on for way too long, and I'm going to make concise videos going into elements of my Abramelin experience. If people want to ask me questions, please do so. If people want to criticize me, do so, but be respectful. How I'm going to end this is, I tried my best, and even though a whole lot of stuff in life came and threw itself at me to try and derail the operation, I stuck with it. And with no lust for result, I got results that were far beyond anything I was expecting. And I appreciate that a lot of people have been so, on the internet, have been so supportive of me doing this operation. And people have been convinced, a lot of people have been, far more convinced that the operation would be a success than I did. I had a much more bleak perspective. And in a way, I call it a success, even though I had to stop it and I didn't summon the demons and finish that part of the operation. I would have if I had a more clear form of communication with the Holy Guardian Angel, but the Holy Guardian Angel specifically, essentially, told me not to continue. So what do I do next? I finished the Abremelin. I had this strange experience. Do I walk off and do I move on and never go into it again? Some people do the Abramelin operation, the 6-month version, 4 times in their lifetime. I'm not going to do the Abramelin again. I'm just going to strengthen the link and continue on my own magical path. And I am going to do things. I deliberately have not pulled out my scrying mirror and attempted evoking my Holy Guardian Angel to get more communication because I was told to rest for 8 days. However, tomorrow, the day after, I am going to try and get back into communication. And I'm going to go through some of my AA books, which, as I stated earlier, they are absolutely not secret because they've been published and printed. This isn't just people leaking stuff on the internet or anything. This is stuff that the AA has published to the general public. And I'm going to follow some of the techniques of strengthening the link with the Holy Guardian Angel via the recommendations in the AA. And the Abramelin never truly ends. You are meant to be in communication and with your Holy Guardian Angel for the rest of your life. Part of the prayer at the ending is you pray fervently that it will never leave you. Now, there's a lot of theories, like when you finish the Abramelin, because you've had to bring the Holy Guardian Angel into manifestation, and it's come from quite high up in the Sephiroth, and you're pulling it into consensus reality, it becomes exhausted afterwards and might take 4 years before it can do anything. I don't know if that's the case. That's just something I've heard. Everyone is so damn secretive about this whole thing. And I understand why, but I don't think people should be. I think it's time that some of this stuff becomes more clear so people don't make as many mistakes. And yeah, if I followed the 18-month Abramelin operation, if I did a 6-month version and I didn't have the Mathers one, I never would have thought of scrying. I do not know why they cut that out of the new translation. I understand cutting out the child oracle, but I do not understand cutting out scrying into a piece of polished silver, because that is the initial means of communication. And without that, yes, you will get something weird if you have performed the operation successfully. And I did get a lot of weird things. And you will be overwhelmed with a sense of, in the Abramelin it states, peace and tranquility. For me, it was unbelievably intense. Not in a negative way, not in the way that demons can be, where they just suck all the energy out of you and leave you with nothing. This was... I've never experienced anything like this before. And yeah, I was in a state of shock for days. Like, I still don't know what to think about it. But yeah, I'm not going... The operation is over for me. I'm not going to do it again. I am going to continue communication if I can. And I will begin the long journey from there. Anyway, thank you for watching this ridiculously long video of mine and rant about the end of my Abramelin operation. I will make more concise videos about it. But I just thought it was important to have the whole thing laid out. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for your interest in this in the first place. This is such a niche subject matter. I'm shocked that anyone was interested. So I hope I've helped people out, and yeah, I hope this has been an interesting thing to follow over the past 6 months. So yeah, thank you, and have a good day.